This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. All right, let's get into this. I just say my little intro. Hello and welcome back to Death by Southwest, the podcast where each week I share a different grisly murder story unique to the American Southwest, while my sister and co-host tries to piece together the clues and unravel the mystery behind each of these heinous crimes. And I'm your host, Margot, and today we do not have Jenna here. We have
Mark
filling in for Jenna. So bear with him.
Also,
I'm great.
Also known as Just Mark.
Just Mark, that's right. That's
I'm
right.
all, hey, y'all.
That's what, when we first started dating, and Brandon and Jason and stuff, like other producers that I worked with at that last company I was at, I would talk about you a little bit. And Jason was like, "Who's Mark?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just Mark. Like, I've known him for 10 years. He was, my brother-in-law's best friend and blah, blah, blah." And so then his nickname was Just Mark. But I think we've dropped that Just Mark now.
I kind of miss it.
We can bring him back.
Kind of left me like anonymous, like maybe I was there,
Mysterious.
maybe I wasn't. Yeah.
So I just want to say to everyone who has, before we jump into this, everyone who has reached out, sent DMs, sent emails, everything. Thank you about losing Izzy and having to put Izzy to sleep. Thank you so much. I think I said this on last week. I recorded just a solo thing, and I think I said this then, and I'm going to say it again. I have not yet looked at many of those messages. I have not responded to them. I have had a much harder time with this than I thought I was going to, and that's why there was not a new episode last week. And prior to that, I had COVID. So I just want to say thank you for the support and for understanding that I've been less active on social media. I'm just trying to figure out what life looks like without my little buddy next to me at all times. And that's all I'm going to say so I don't start crying. So, I'll say one more thing.
We miss you, Izzy.
We do miss you, Izzy, but I will say that since you're on here now, because I would have said it to Jenna anyways, like, you were really wonderful through all of this. It's been really hard on me. I've had a very difficult time with it. And like the day that it happened, you were so supportive, and you were torn up as well. You were sad.
It was rough. I love that little pup.
Yeah, it was really hard. But the days following that, you got all my favorite things, and just were okay that I didn't want to get out of bed for an entire day. And you were quite wonderful. And I really, because Jenna was out of town, so it's something that I would have had to go through completely alone if you weren't here. And I've said it to you, but I'll say it on a public forum now that you were great, and I really, really appreciate that.
Love you, babe.
Love you too. Ugh, everyone listening is like, ugh, gross.
Oh my God.
All right, well, today we are exploring a salacious love triangle between a husband, wife, and 22-year-old lover that went horribly wrong and had police baffled for months. With shocking details including everything from infidelity and betrayal to sex parties and orgies to Bible passages and poisoned pudding, this story will leave you speechless. But ultimately, today's story serves as a tragic reminder that passionate personal relationships can sometimes drive people to commit deeply disturbing acts.
Are you sure this isn't just like an episode of Desperate Housewives that I haven't seen yet? You just stole it off of this thing. And you're like, Mark will never guess this one.
That's like one of, I can't remember now because we haven't had a new episode in like 2 weeks, but like when I was writing it for whatever the last one was, I think Loretta Bowersock was the one me and Jenna did.
That totally sounds like a TV show named Bowersock. You know what I mean?
I was very into rewatching Desperate Housewives, which I watched when it first came out years ago. And listeners who listen to the bonus episodes, they know that because I've already talked about Desperate Housewives a bunch. But then when we had COVID, sorry, Mark had COVID also. I didn't know if that was okay to say. But when we both had COVID, we had started watching it one night with Jenna, I think. I was on like season 6, and you were making fun of it and whatnot. But then when we had COVID, you were like, well, let's start over at episode 1. And now Mark says every night, can you put on my soap? We got to watch my soaps.
No, my soaps.
Soaps.
Because my grandmother used to say, she's all, I got to watch my soaps. And I'm like, what? Like, okay, you know?
It is kind of like a soap
It's
opera.
totally
I
a
guess.
soap opera.
Yeah.
It's just like primetime show.
But it's
many years
really,
ago.
I think both of us can agree it's like not amazing TV. We're not talking like Sopranos,
Yeah, it's
Breaking
not like
Bad.
a Scorsese
Right.
movie or something. You know what I mean? It's just
But
like
you've kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was like it's fun to watch and it's like entertaining.
It's real, and the honestly the most fun part of it for me, because now I'm rewatching it again from episode 1, and we're already on season 5.
Thank God for binge watching and sickness.
You know there's 23 episodes per season though. That's
wow.
That's 23 hours of TV, and we're on season 5. We started episode 1.
Okay, cut this.
Anyways, the best part about it is that we talk about it as we're watching it, and like you're pretty funny and you make fun of it and say funny things, and
I also can predict everything that happens.
it's the
like
most
half
annoying.
of a season ahead.
That's true. Mark has called, there's always like a cliffhanger at the end of an episode. Mark has called almost every single thing that has happened. He'll just say it before it happens, and it kills me. I just want you to be surprised by something. And you have yet to be pretty much surprised by anything in this show.
No, I haven't been surprised at all.
I don't care. I love it. I'm having so much fun watching it with you. All right, let's do our sense of place.
Okay. Well, we're in the living room right now. I've been here a lot, so feels real homey.
That couch feels like very much like your second bed right now after these 2 weeks. Between COVID and losing Izzy, we've really couched it a lot. So our sense of place. So this episode today actually takes place in Helendale, California, which is right outside of the Mojave Desert. It's in Southern California, which me and Jenna have talked about is a debate. Like, is Southern California considered the Southwest, or is it not? Because you know that the Hurricane Hillary I guess has come and passed. In all the news stories, it says Hurricane Hillary is going to dump so much rain on Southern California and the Southwest. Like, it never includes Southern California in the Southwest. I think it's debatable. Well, for the sake of this episode, we're going to consider Southern California the Southwest. And the Mojave Desert, it's the desert. It feels Southwestern. We're calling it the Southwest. So we're going to do a little bit of sense of place with the Mojave Desert, and we're going to do a little bit about Helendale, because that's where our main couple in this story. I picked a couple story because I knew we were going to be doing this together. So this is about a couple. I said couple a bunch of times there.
That was a lot of times.
Yeah.
You coupled it together.
All right, so tell me what you know about the Mojave Desert.
I don't know. It's just out there. It's pretty hot.
He's texting right now, and Mark infamously cannot text and do anything. Like, if he's texting, you would think he is, I don't know, he's doing something that requires just the utmost attention.
I was actually researching something about the Mojave Desert,
Stop it. Then that's not fair. That's cheating.
Well,
Jenna comes into these episodes blind.
I looked at one thing.
Okay, tell me what you know about the Mojave Desert.
I know it gets pretty hot.
Yeah, it does. Where's it located? No, don't look at your phone.
I know Lower California, like towards us.
Yes, it lies in 4 different states. It's located within the borders of southeastern California, southwestern Nevada, and there are small portions that extend into Arizona and Utah. And the nearest big cities, really the biggest nearest city is, what would be your guess? You have no idea, do you?
I don't. I really don't.
Las Vegas.
Kind of makes sense.
And it also, the Mojave Desert is located it is the lowest point of elevation in the entire United States. What would you think
the lowest point is?
Mm-hmm, yep, it's in Death Valley in the Mojave Desert.
Oh, in Death Valley.
Yeah, but I'm saying in a footage, in a measurement way, what would you imagine to be the lowest point?
Isn't it like a couple 100 feet below like sea level, somewhere around there?
It is. It's 282 feet below sea level. That's the lowest point in the entire United States. And it's located in Badwater Salt Pan in Death Valley in the Mojave Desert.
It's like a perfect name for anything. Badwater Salt Pan. You know what I mean? You're like, let's go there and hang out, get a suntan. You know?
But then it also has the contrasting. It's not the highest point in the United States, but the highest point in the Mojave Desert is 11,918 feet. So that's a big difference above sea level.
That's huge.
Huge
you know
difference. Yeah. So you know that Mojave Desert, maybe you don't, has a reputation for being very harsh and barren, obviously, but it's also home to a wide range of plant and animal species that have been adapted to survive in its extreme conditions. Can you tell me a species of tree that is very popular in the Mojave Desert?
Very popular tree.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a mesquite?
Nope.
Is it an ironwood?
Nope.
Is it a Bristol pine?
No.
Is it a creosote?
No.
It's a bush. I don't know what the tree is. No, it's not a Palo Verde.
Mm-mm.
You would never survive out that. Those trees suck.
It's a Joshua tree.
Oh, yeah, what tree? I mean, it's like a cacti, though. Like,
Well, yes, it is, but it's okay.
Oh, it says tree in the name.
It does say tree in the name.
You
Okay.
fooled me.
And
Shame
what
on
about
me.
an animal that survives? Animal, reptile, whatever. Like, I know it's not
Like possibly the rattlesnake?
It's not a rattlesnake. Okay, I know you were going to say that. It's not a rattlesnake.
Was it something small and cute?
I'm not going to tell you that.
Is
I have
it like
a great clue.
kangaroo
I
rat?
have a great clue for you, though,
Okay, let's hear it.
that no one else will understand, but the second I say it, you'll get it.
Okay.
Alan.
Paul Allen?
No. Really?
An alligator?
No. Alan is the name of
Oh,
somebody.
it's a tortoise.
Thank you. Jeez.
It's my good friend's tortoise.
Felice would be sad to hear you take so long for that. Duh.
I see that thing every 14 years. It
Oh my
comes
gosh,
out, eats
I
like a
love
piece of
him.
lettuce, like going back in my hole.
Right. So Jenna's husband, so my brother-in-law Michael, his parents live here, and they have a desert tortoise, Alan. They've had him for how long? As long-
30 years.
Yeah, so long. And didn't Gary build an underground structure for him to go hibernate
Yeah,
in?
he has his little hole that he goes into, and he's
Right.
generally there most of the time, and then he comes out for to hang out.
Mhm.
Sometimes get some watermelon.
Yeah, he's cool. I like Alan. So things do survive in the Mojave Desert, even though not many things do. Death Valley, you mentioned, is located within the Mojave Desert. It's one of the hottest places on Earth. So it holds the record for the highest air temperature ever recorded in 1913. What temperature do you think that was?
134 degrees.
You looked that up.
I did.
Okay, fine. Well, that's a very hot. That's
hot.
Ridiculous, because think about the hottest it's been here in Tucson in the past few weeks has been 116, maybe 114.
But realistically, you can't slow cook chicken because it'll never reach the temperature that's safe to eat. But you could put a filet mignon in the oven and cook it at 134,
And it would get there. So you could technically put that out on a sidewalk in Death Valley, and it would cook just naturally by the sun.
You could also park your car, put it on the dash, and bring it up to 375
That's
degrees.
true.
You know,
Good point. Good point.
think how hot your car gets here when it's in the sun. Think about
Ugh,
that.
That's awful.
It's when you open up the oven, it's all a blast of heat. It's
Well,
like
that's how
that.
it feels
But
when you open up your door here some days.
yeah.
It's like you said it, and then I think I've said it. It's like standing in a hairdryer.
Yeah, when it's windy here in the summertime, it's like the hairdryer's all.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Helendale, California. That was an overview of the Mojave Desert. Now we're going to talk about Helendale. Don't look anything
I'm
up.
just joking. I'm not gonna do it.
You've never even heard of it. I'm not going to ask you questions. I'm just going to tell you about it. So just listen to my lovely, tourism explanation of Helendale. Helendale is a small unincorporated community located in San Bernardino County. It's situated in the Mojave Desert region and is about 20 miles west of Victorville. It's about 2 hours to get to the Mojave Desert. As of September 2021, they had about 5,900 people living there. So small. It is situated along historic Route 66.
Route or route? It's Route 66.
It's Route 66, yeah. It's situated along historic Route 66, which was a major highway connecting the Midwest to California during the mid-20th century. We've talked about Route 66 a lot on here. It's also located near the Mojave River. Well, Jen always asks what the elevation is. So the elevation is 2,430 feet above sea level. I don't know why, but she's always very interested in that. One of the most important things we're going to talk about Helendale, because there's not a whole lot to say about Helendale.
Obviously, 5,900 people. You know?
Well,
There's a burger
it's
stand.
located
People
like
hang out.
pretty much in the Mojave Desert. Like, there's not a lot happening there.
I'm assuming it's kind of dangerous, though.
Dangerous? Why? Because of the heat?
This is a murder podcast.
Oh.
You know what I mean? I'm just assuming it's kind of sketchy with
Wow.
5,900 people. If one person gets killed, it's sketchy as shit, you know?
Wow, I definitely didn't get that, but that was good. You're right. So there's a community within Helendale called the Silver Lakes community. It's a residential resort community that features a bunch of man-made lakes. It's known for its 27-hole, like, elite golf course, recreational amenities such as sandy beaches, shady parks, an equestrian center, tennis courts, fine dining, churches, fitness facilities. So it's basically like like you can live there and you just have like everything you want within this community called Silver Lakes. And that is the community where our main couple in today's story lived.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Houses range in price from $240,000 to $800,000, so there's a wide range.
What?
Yeah, big range. But I'll have to post some pictures about it. It's lovely looking, which is kind of weird because the Mojave Desert is like pretty barren. You wouldn't imagine to live like in a place with lakes and water and sandy beach, man-made beaches, but beaches, and so it's kind of an oasis within this very barren desert landscape. I don't think there's a lot of that here in Tucson.
Well, Tucson's just naturally beautiful.
I agree. I love
I actually know
Tucson.
of a little spot where there's a natural spring, and you can just, like, it's like a neighborhood road. It's kind of up by Star Pass.
I know. My dad told me. Oh, really?
Yeah, and you can just, like, hike back to it's, like, not much, but it's a natural spring. There's, like, a little palm tree there and stuff.
Why have you never taken me there?
Well, because it's too romantic. I was saving it, and now this podcast ruined it. Yeah.
There's, as far as Helendale goes, there's not a whole lot else to say about it. They have some ghost towns. It's a former mining town. But realistically, I just wanted to touch on that it's close to the Mojave Desert and that Silver Lakes Resort Community is going to be where it really takes place today.
So are these people, like, it's a resort community or, like, a retirement community?
No, not retirement community.
Resort
Community, meaning,
Okay.
There's pools and it's got all the resorty type things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand that.
Anyways, all right, let's jump into the story. This has already been too long of an intro, and we know people don't like a long intro.
Sorry, I'm very entertaining.
You're very talkative. All right, we're going to jump into this love triangle gone wrong story that focuses largely on Sabrina and Robert Limon.
Limone?
Limone. Go ahead and say it. You said you were going to say it, so
My
say
wonderful girlfriend made a delicious handmade lemon meringue pie the other day. It was so good.
That's right. Because one night, I'd never had lemon meringue pie, and one of our COVID nights, Mark was like, oh, I could really go for lemon meringue pie. And I was like, oh, I don't think I've ever had that. And then he spent the next 30 minutes on his phone like, ooh, where could I get the best lemon meringue pie in Tucson? And this and this and this. And it never went anywhere. We never got it that night. And so the next day when he went to work, I thought to myself, I'm going to make him a lemon meringue pie from scratch.
But my goal worked. Like, I put it into your head. It was like Inception. Like, I implanted that in your head. And the next thing you know, I had a lemon meringue pie. I'm like, easy.
It's true. Anyways, the couple that we're talking about is Sabrina and Robert Limon. And Sabrina was born in Prescott, Arizona in 1980. People described her as charming, very friendly, always made people around her smile. Little known about her beyond that, like in her childhood. Sometimes I try to give some background to these people when they're adults. There really wasn't much on her. And Robert, her eventual husband, was also born in Prescott, but in 1977, so he's 3 years older than her. They both have other siblings. I think Sabrina had one sister. Robert had a sister, Lydia. And Robert worked at the BNSF Railway as a mechanic. And that actually stands for Burlington Northern Santa Fe, which is confusing because it's not in Santa Fe, it's in California. I don't know why.
That makes sense, kind of.
It's the largest freight railroad in the United States, one of 6 North American Class 1 railroads. BNSF has 35,000 employees and 32,000 miles of track in 28 states and 8,000 locomotives. It's a big railway.
It's a pretty good gig. Those railroad guys make a lot of money.
They do. That's right. He does. So Robert was known to be a spirited person. He was a people person. He was very, very friendly, very outgoing. He loved the outdoors. He loved the water, hence eventually moving to Silver Lakes where there were man-made lakes with boating and all kinds of things.
He was
like
obviously handy because he's a mechanic.
He was handy. And he was handsome and she was good looking. Both of them. They were an attractive people.
It's like us. Like, I'm handsome and handy and you're good looking.
She had, blonde hair, and I don't know exactly, but they were attractive people, good looking people. Don't make a blonde comment because I have black hair.
I love your dark, beautiful hair.
Yeah, that's right. So Sabrina and Robert first met when they were teenagers in Arizona, and they both have called it kind of love at first sight. They were, I think she was 18, he was 21, if he's 3 years older. That's not totally official, but they met when they were in their late teens in Arizona. Love at first sight, quickly began dating, and after Sabrina finished high school, they decided to move to California because Robert had a very high-paying job at the railway as a mechanic. And August 19th, 2000, they were married, and they were excited to start a family together. Sabrina was looking forward to being a stay-at-home mom, and they bought a quaint little house on Strawberry Lane, located in the scenic Silver Lakes community in Helendale. And pretty quickly after that, had 2 children, Robbie and Leanna.
Sounds like a perfect little life.
The next sentence I have is, their life appeared to be perfect. They were good looking, they were wealthy, they were deeply in love and seemed to be each other's best friends. And beyond that, they had a vibrant social life and a tight-knit group of friends. Sabrina and Robert were known in their group of friends for throwing booze-filled parties in addition to fun family gatherings on a regular basis. And they were often referred to as the it couple in the group. And that friend group also jokingly referred to themselves as the Wolf Pack. Like, this is a bunch of adults with children that all live in the Silver Lake community, and they're just all very, very close.
If I lived there and I was also like an it couple, like we would be, I'd be all, we're the coyote crew.
Because of Indiana?
Well, yeah, and also coyotes are smarter than wolves.
Wow. That's right. You do say that
They're
all the
not
time.
as handsome, but...
Anyways, life was good for Robert and Sabrina, who were blissfully happy living this traditional, wholesome suburban life that a lot of people only dream of. But, as we all know, nothing is ever quite what it seems, especially when it comes to marriage and relationships. Often marriages that appear so picture perfect from the outside tend to be hiding more than a few scandalous secrets behind closed doors. And Sabrina and Robert were no different.
Don't miss what happens next in today's episode. We'll be right back after a short message from our sponsors.
In 2008, the two decided to open up their marriage and their bedroom to other people. They began swapping sexual partners and going to group orgies with other couples in their neighborhood. And soon, they both became obsessed with sex, which meant that their once idyllic marriage and life started to head down a pretty dark road.
Was this like the wolf pack or the fuck pack?
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of people from that wolf pack. I don't know. That was never specified.
Was it like Eyes Wide Shut in the desert? You know what I mean? Like everybody's all wearing masks
No.
and shit, tuxedos.
It was, from what I understand, they had like big group sex parties. They went on, well, I'm going to tell you. According to Sabrina's family,
Are there any houses for sale out there? I'd like to get into it. Yeah. Sounds great.
Shut it. According to Sabrina's family, the swinger lifestyle idea was Robert's idea and not something that Sabrina was particularly thrilled about, but she went along with it to keep him
No
happy.
shit.
Yeah, of course. Sabrina's sister, Julie, said they went on adult vacations often. They went out adult boating rides. They partied a lot at the North Lake, which I guess is one of the lakes in the community.
The sex party lake?
Sex parties, right, exactly. And Kelly Bernatine was Sabrina's best friend, in addition to also being the couple that Sabrina and Robert had sex with often, apparently.
They're swinger buddies or whatever,
Yes.
you know?
Kelly and Jason often had sex with or sexual encounters with Sabrina and Robert. But it actually turned out that Robert and Kelly, so Sabrina's husband and her best friend,
Are having an affair.
were having more than just group sex with their spouses involved. They were allegedly having their own private one-on-one affair. And if you do the same thing you do in Desperate Housewives for this whole episode, I'm going to kill you.
No, what I'm going to try to say is that I actually do something exactly like this.
You did?
Yeah, when
In real life?
Yes, exactly. I mean, it wasn't like community and all this shit. It was actually when I worked in concrete when I was like 20 to 22 years old. There's this one guy named Lonnie. So Lonnie worked with us on the concrete crew. Like he was a form setter, finisher, like backhoe operator. Him and his wife were swingers, and there was like another general contractor around. We like met him and like, oh yeah, and everybody like started to be like, oh yeah, they're swingers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because, yeah, it was like totally cool, right?
Yeah,
Everything
of
was
course.
great. But then they like fucked on the side, and then it was like a huge problem. I'm like, don't you guys all fuck? I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
think there's
understand. I was
certain
like
rules
young,
to
you know?
it, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you only screw around when you're
When
like,
you're
oh,
like in a
right there,
group.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Dun, dun, dun.
Robert and Kelly were having allegedly,
Affair.
there was talk of them having their own private one-on-one affair. And according to some sources, Robert would often come home from being with Kelly and share with Sabrina, his wife, all of the graphic details of all the sexual things that Kelly had just done for him. Like, oh my God, you won't believe what Kelly just did. She just did this and this and this. But unsurprisingly, Sabrina didn't love hearing about that. Like, she was not happy about it. In fact, she was growing a little bit tired of having an open marriage. She began feeling lonely because when Robert wasn't at work or having orgies, he
I mean,
spent...
when did he have time to like work on trains? Jesus Christ. He has like a sex orgy life, and then,
he has his wife,
he has a
and then he
wife
has
and like
his
kids,
affair.
and then
Yeah.
he has like sex parties, and then like an affair. Like
He was
Jesus.
dedicated to it.
I hope he was a good
Hardworking.
mechanic. I wouldn't want him working on my train. Like, where's that bolt? He's like, oh, you know how many people I slept with last night? I totally forgot that. Anyways, stay away from that railway.
In addition to all of that, when he wasn't doing any of those other things, he apparently had become obsessed with porn, online porn.
Because he wasn't getting enough of it.
Well, no, I mean, they became a little bit like, from what I
Sex
understand,
addicts.
like sex addicts. Yeah, it was like that was all that he wanted to do. So Sabrina felt that he had become obsessed with online porn and was showing less and less interest in her, including less interest in having sex with her. She also felt that Robert had stopped supporting her emotionally, and she became pretty desperate to escape this swinger lifestyle that Robert seemed to be enjoying way more than her. Which leads me to my question for you. Do you think, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit between us, but like, do you think that it is possible for, I'm not saying us, I'm saying couples in the world who are in a long-term marriage or relationship to do something like this, where you're having group sex, you're having sex with your neighbors and stuff, but you both maybe agree to not have any of the private one-on-one things, even though it seems unlikely. You think it's possible for a relationship to survive that?
I mean, I'm sure there's cases where it happens, but I would guess that 90% of those situations end
In divorce.
badly.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. Personally
Yeah, you
known
saw
one
it in
person
real
who
life.
did that,
Yeah.
and it
Didn't work.
does not work out.
Ended
you know?
badly.
Yeah.
Well, we can perhaps
I could
assume that this
assume.
one ends badly as well. So Sabrina's sister is quoted as saying that Sabrina wanted her and Robert to go back to church and go back to like a more wholesome lifestyle. But Robert didn't want anything to change. Sabrina's sister also said that she was drinking so much. She was drinking pretty much all the time just to numb herself because she was so unhappy with this lifestyle that she had once enjoyed, but they're doing this for years now at this point. and she was tired of it. So in 2012, they opened up their marriage in 2008. So 4 years later, she's unhappy at this point. She doesn't want to do this anymore. And her kids were both in school full time now. So she decided to get a job as a part-time employee at the Costco in Victorville. She was hoping that it would not only serve as a distraction, but it would allow her to make some of her own money so she could do kind of her own things and leave Robert to his online porn and, one-on-one affairs.
And also buy in bulk, like great things.
And buy in bulk and get a good discount at Costco too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And this is where we meet somebody named Jonathan Hearn. Jonathan was handsome, 22 years old, and a firefighter and paramedic.
Oh, my God.
What? He is all the things.
Yeah, I think I know what happens.
So Jonathan Hearn was handsome, 22 years old, firefighter and paramedic. And when he walked into Costco one day while Sabrina was working, sparks immediately flew. The fact that she was married and 11 years older than him didn't stop him from asking for her number, which she readily gave him. However, his age wasn't the only thing that set Jonathan apart from Sabrina and made them a pretty unlikely match. Sabrina was outgoing, friendly, and, as we've learned, very sexually experienced. And Jonathan was pretty much the complete opposite. He was sheltered. He grew up in a home where he was homeschooled and raised in a very religious household. And even at 22 years old, he had really never had a girlfriend for long term or been in a real serious relationship. But a quiet, reserved man who was thoughtful and kind was exactly what Sabrina was looking for, even though she was married. She wanted someone to fill that emotional void that her husband Robert had left her with at this point in life. But being the God-fearing man that Jonathan was, he was slightly hesitant to jump into an affair with a married woman. He felt it was better to be friends first, and initially Sabrina obliged, and they started a friendship. Which leads me to my next question for you. Do you think that men and women can actually be friends? Like really, without it ever becoming romantic or sexual?
Depends on like who you are.
This is a general question. That's not a good answer. In general, it doesn't matter who you are. Do you think like the general population of men and women can be friends? And like friends, like we're going to hang out, we're going to talk on the phone. We're going to also hang out with our significant others together, but we're also going to hang out alone.
Like go have coffee together?
Yeah, and do you think like it can be that and never becomes romantic or sexual?
I don't really think so. If it's like someone at work that you have lunch with or something like that, I think it can be that. But I think if you're like, oh, let's just go get lunch together, and like, yeah, I think it's on the fence. You know what I mean? It's like it's a little weird.
Yeah, I don't think it can happen. At the second I said that, you know what? I want to take it back. Brandon's one of my best friends. Jason is married to a man, so I feel like that is never going to become sexual there.
Should be fine, you know.
But like Jason's one of my closest friends, Brandon's one of my close friends, and Brandon is married to a woman with kids.
You met him through work, so it's like a different scenario. But let's say you worked at Costco. If you're like some firefighter dude came in,
oh my God, he would never be okay with that.
And he's like, oh, he just wants to go out to lunch. I'm like, he's trying to have sex with you, by the way.
Right. You're one of the least jealous people that I know, actually, genuinely. I'm very jealous.
You said you're going to lunch with a
You're
firefighter
not, but if I was like,
at
I'm
Costco.
a 22-year-old firefighter, yeah, exactly.
I don't care about his age, but at Costco.
All right, so I think we've determined that no,
It's a no.
largely feel that men and women in most scenarios can't be friends.
Well, I think that's the thing, though. I have to stop you at that.
No, wait. Let me say something first. I'm going to cut you off because you never stop talking. This podcast can go on for 3 hours. People are going to hate us. But I'll say this, and I've said this to you before. If you had a relationship with someone at your work in the same way that I do with Brandon, I would not be cool with it. I would hate it. And I don't know why it's like it feels different to me with Brandon, and he'll never listen to this, but if he did, he would hate me because he feels more like an older uncle. I don't want to say father figure, but like older brother. And he's not that much older than me. I don't know. But if you had a relationship with a woman who was, 7 years older than you, even if she was married with kids, and you guys talked on the phone the way that me and Brandon do, and I heard you guys talking, I would not be okay with it. I would have a problem with it.
Well, if it was just like personal advice or something like that, you know what I mean?
No, I would hate it.
Okay. Well,
yeah, I wouldn't like that.
I thought you and Brandon, I'm totally cool with that because I love Brandon.
I know.
You should be worried about us.
About you and Brandon getting together.
We always talk about running away because we would just be perfect at like woodworking and shit. We just live like a quiet, like old person's life together. Like as we grow older together.
You are both a little bit old.
Older.
Well, there's our discussion on men and women being friends.
Okay, we know that.
We're going to get back to the story.
Let's move on.
Okay. So where we were was that Jonathan didn't want to jump into anything romantic because she was married. He's a very religious man, young man. And so Sabrina obliged. But quickly she grew tired of just the flirting and being friends and decided that she was going to convince him to have more with her. And she was going to use her sexual prowess to do so. So she seduced him by taking and sending lots of racy photos of herself in sexy lingerie. And it turned out that was enough to convince Jonathan. The two began seeing each other and meeting up for secret sexual rendezvous whenever they could. And after over a year of doing this, going on 2 years, it was clear that this was more than just sex. They were falling in love. So Sabrina was finally getting the love and attention that she had so desperately wanted from her husband in recent years, but never received. And strangely enough, it seemed that Sabrina and Robert had found kind of a sweet spot. They found like a don't ask, don't tell policy in their marriage. It's pretty likely that Sabrina knew about Robert's kind of extramarital affairs and Robert knew about Sabrina's, but they just didn't talk about it and
They
kind
just
of
let it go.
They just let it go. So Robert was busy with his affair or affairs. Sabrina was busy with Jonathan, and it kind of worked for them. And
Were they still having the group sex at that point?
I think they were, but probably less frequently. They had found kind of this equilibrium and balance in their separate lives, but also they found a way to maintain kind of the facade of that they have this perfect, blissful family life together, both for their kids and for, they were pretty image conscious. They wanted to look like the perfect family. And so they maintained that while also carrying on their illicit affairs behind closed doors. That went on with Sabrina and Jonathan for about 2 years. But on August 17th, 2014, tragedy struck and everything changed. Robert was viciously attacked while working at the railway. He was shot twice, once in the face, and it exited through the back of his neck. The second shot went up through his chest and into his jaw area and then got lodged in his brain, and he was dead.
You know what that tells me?
What?
Shot in the face, fell down. As he was falling, shot in the chest.
Yep. Okay, but why would someone want Robert dead? Who would have done this? To most people, really to everyone, Robert was a friendly, loving, dedicated father and husband. That's what he put out. Of course, the people who were having, he's having group sex with understood that he had a little bit of a different private life, but that didn't make him a bad person. It didn't make him a bad dad. It didn't even make him a bad husband because initially his wife wanted to do that with him.
Obviously, it's not like Sabrina's shooting him because he's like, okay, I get you're sleeping with other
Right.
people. I'm sleeping with other people.
Exactly. So it was very confusing. So Kern County Detective Tommy Robbins said Robert was well liked by everyone and no one could imagine any reason why someone would want to kill him. But if you look at his unconventional love life a little bit, I'm not saying it's Sabrina, but that it kind of opens up the pool of potential suspects because could it have been like the jealous husband of somebody that he was sleeping with?
It sounds like he had sex with a lot of people's wives. You know
There
what I
you
mean?
go. A scorned past lover. Maybe he had sex with one wife and then moved on to another, and that one got jealous. A neighbor who knew what was going on and disapproved. There was a lot of options. And to make matters worse for investigators, there's really no relevant forensic evidence found at the crime scene. So he was killed at the railway, I believe right outside of kind of like the office areas. They did, however, obtain surveillance video from the rail yard and then also some surrounding businesses. And the surveillance video from the crime scene around the time that he was shot, which was in the evening on August 17th, they suspected between 5 and 6:30 p.m. They didn't have him being shot on video, but they did see
Comings and goings of things that are
right.
around.
So they saw a somewhat blurry figure wandering around the crime scene at the time of his murder. It appeared to be a man. He was dressed in long sleeves, long pants, and seemed to walk with a limp. And then a nearby company also provided their surveillance video, and the police were able to see Robert arriving to the railway. Obviously, he didn't leave the railway, unfortunately. So there were multiple other vehicles on the road with him, and he was arriving to work that day. And they were able to identify all the other motorists on the road based on their license plates, their car, whatever. They found them, talked to them, were able to rule them out as suspects, except for a man on a motorcycle. They couldn't identify this man. They didn't know who he was. They couldn't find him. So when detectives examined surveillance footage from a nearby gas station and convenience store, they saw that same man on the motorcycle pulling into the gas station. He had a similar build and appearance. He was wearing different clothes, but he did have a similar build to the man that was at the railway, the blurry man. But this man, from what they could tell, wasn't limping. So they weren't sure if it was connected or not. They also scoured Robert's office at the railway, and it had been ransacked. So the discovery of his office in disarray only added more possible suspects, because then detectives were like, well, maybe this was just a robbery. Maybe somebody came here, thought it was going to be empty because it was evening time on a Sunday.
At a rail yard, what are you ransacking? They don't keep a lot of cash on hand, Then
they also thought, well, maybe it's just a random crime, like just a random violent crime. Somebody came here to just root around and take stuff, and then they didn't expect someone else to be there, and then he was there, and so they shot him. So while police were searching for suspects and a motive, Sabrina was busy posting on her social media accounts expressing how heartbroken she was and what an amazing man Robert was, with posts like this, quote, "Through this pain and unbelievable tragedy, Rob's love continues on. God blessed us with Rob for the time he did, and the love he gave was more than some ever will feel or show. I will carry it with me wherever I go, and I remind our children of it daily as they grow. It's a feeling of joy, yet I'm totally numb to the fact that I'm left on earth now without him," end quote. So she was grieving and expressing that through her social media channels, as well as, I'm sure, with her family and friends. And police are still searching, and they have no real concrete leads at this point. So the sheriff's office then decided to offer a $100,000 reward for any information that might lead to catching who did this. But even that $100,000, it wasn't enough to entice anyone to come forward with useful information. Several people came forward. And
I saw a guy on a motorcycle or something.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And the police followed those few leads that were called in. But ultimately, they were hitting dead end after dead end. And they were frustrated. That is until Detective Robert Meyer received a phone call from Jason Bernadine. If you recall, Jason was the husband of Kelly, Sabrina's best friend, that they were in this like swingers group with.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And so Jason called Detective Robert Meyer, and he called to share some strange text messages that he had received from a man named Jonathan Hearn.
The sexy Costco firefighter guy?
Same exact one. It seemed that Jonathan had been feeling guilty about the affair and wanted to ask for forgiveness for his shameful behavior. Now, Detective Meyer was confused. Why would Jonathan text his lover's best friend, like his married Sabrina's couple best friend? Like, where's the connection there? Why would he text this guy Jason Bernadine? And Detective Meyer didn't know either, but he was determined to figure this out. And this now pointed him in the direction of someone. Prior to this, they'd just been looking at motorists on the street. There was no kind of direction to this investigation. And now there's an affair, and there's somebody that Sabrina's having an affair with, allegedly, at this point. Nothing is proven.
Allegedly.
Mm-hmm. But this new information put Jonathan on the police, on the detectives and police's radar, and it shifted this investigation into a new direction. Detective Meyer wanted to know more about Jonathan Hearn, but he's smart, and he decided that instead of going to Jonathan, he would pay Sabrina a visit first, because based on these texts, in his mind, he's like, okay, well, I know they're having an affair now, but let's see what Sabrina has to say about it.
I asked her if there were any issues in the marriage, such as infidelity or a boyfriend, girlfriend, anything like that, and she denied that, and she said it was great. Her and Rob had a great marriage.
So she lied.
So this was a bold-faced lie that Sabrina told. We have a great marriage. There's no infidelity. There's no nothing. Where obviously she knows she's having infidelity, and she knows that Rob is too. Like they both are, in addition to sleeping with tons of other people together. So she lied directly to Detective Meyer, which instantly infused him with new excitement about this case. It breathed new life into this case because it was kind of stagnant, and he's like, well, somebody only lies if they have something to hide. Detective Meyer was unsure, though, if this actually meant anything. Was the always image-conscious Sabrina trying to cover up the affair and lying about it because it would lead police to discover that she was involved in the murder? Or was she simply trying to preserve her image? She didn't want police, she didn't want her neighbors, she didn't want her kids to have to understand that she'd had an affair. He didn't know, but he was determined that he was going to find out. And so he began digging into Sabrina's finances, looking at things that she'd purchased, all her receipts in the previous weeks and months leading up to Robert's murder. And Detective Meyer quickly found what he hoped would provide him with more answers to all of these questions. Any guesses?
Possibly a motorcycle purchase?
A burner phone.
Oh.
She'd purchased a burner phone to communicate with Jonathan exclusively so that there was no chance that Robert could ever find out. And in the 5 months leading up to Rob's murder, Sabrina and Jonathan exchanged over 7,000 texts and phone calls. That's a lot.
In 5 months?
5
That's
months.
a lot.
Yeah. Needless to say, this raised more than a little suspicion for Detective Meyer. And his suspicions only deepened when shortly after finding all of this, the burner phone and the records of their communication, Sabrina seemed to kind of go off the grid. She basically cut Robert's entire family off. She'd always been close with them, and out of nowhere, all of a sudden, she wouldn't let them see the kids. She wouldn't speak to them. It was like she disappeared from their life, at least. And Robert's family was devastated. Like, they just lost their son. They'd always been close with their daughter-in-law and their grandkids or nieces and nephews. They were confused. They didn't understand. Why is this happening? Why has she cut us off? Rob's sister, Lydia, in particular, was very suspicious. And in an interview, she said, "Why would Sabrina be hiding? If you didn't do anything wrong, why are you not communicating or talking to us?" This raises questions.
Raises questions and eyebrows.
That's right. And police agreed. Police felt similarly to Lydia. And they were able to get a judge to approve 24-hour surveillance and wiretaps of calls between Sabrina and her young lover, Jonathan.
You don't want to miss what happens next in today's murder story, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a short message from our sponsors.
Initially, the subject matter that the two discussed on all of these phone calls and recordings, because police are listening to everything, it wasn't exactly what they had expected. It was mostly conversations about God and the Bible, and even sharing Bible passages with each other. In one particular conversation, Jonathan compared himself and Sabrina to biblical figures, King David and Bathsheba. I've never read the Bible, so I don't know how to say that exactly, but I'm going to go with it. Apparently, in the Old Testament, there's a passage where King David sees Bathsheba bathing naked on a rooftop, and he's overcome with lust. But he knows that she's married, so he has her husband, a soldier named Uriah, sent off to the front lines to die.
To get killed.
Yeah, so that they can finally be together. And so on this call, Jonathan says, quote, "David is a lot like you and I, Sabrina. He was someone who made a lot of big mistakes and pretty much had him killed off to cover his sin," him being the husband. So the police didn't know what to make of this. Like, all right, that's it. That one is weird, but a lot of other ones were just like sharing loving Bible passages with each other. So it really wasn't anything. And then one day it shifted a little bit. And it wasn't so much about God anymore. It was way more about Jonathan's growing paranoia. He says to Sabrina on the phone, he says, there's definitely a truck, or at least 2 trucks that have been following you. And she's like, really? He's like, yeah, I've been noticing that they really look like cop trucks who are trying to not look like cop trucks. So keep your eyes open. She was like, okay.
It's a weird conversation to have if you're not guilty.
Right. Police also then started to hear them praying together on these calls, not for forgiveness, but rather for God to steer the criminal investigation away from them as suspects. In one specific conversation, Sabrina told Jonathan that Detective Robert Meyer wants me to come down and talk more about Robert's murder. Like, she'd already done this several times, and he's asking her again. And Jonathan responded by breaking into a prayer that said, "Hi, God, We are on our knees for a reason. We've been dirtbags. We've been sinners. We've been selfish and we sinned. God, please help us just to be wise. Help Sabrina to have the right words. Please keep her calm. I ask you for clarity of thought. And Sabrina said, Amen. So, unfortunately for police, although the calls undoubtedly they heightened suspicions, there's something going on here.
Doesn't prove shit.
Didn't prove anything. There was nothing concrete, nothing definitive that connected them to this crime at all. Until they searched Jonathan's house.
Uh-oh.
Detectives found a motorcycle helmet and gloves that were almost identical to the ones seen being worn by the man in the surveillance videos at the convenience store and gas station near the railway around the time of the crime, and also on the road with Jonathan that evening. And upon further investigation, they also determined that Jonathan's motorcycle was very similar, if not almost identical, to the one caught on the surveillance footage on the road with Robert. That's not all. They also found several firearms that had a similar caliber to the one that killed Robert, which was apparently a very large caliber gun.
Do you know what caliber it was?
I don't.
45, 37?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I can find that. I don't have that, though.
Do you know it was a pistol or a rifle? It was a pistol.
No, it was a pistol. It was a handgun.
Yeah. It was on a motorcycle.
So this all looked pretty bad for Jonathan at this point.
No shit.
And as for Sabrina, well, they also found out that she stood to gain a pretty hefty payday if Robert died from his railroad pension, upwards of $300,000.
Whoa.
So that didn't look great for her either. And all of this collectively had detectives convinced that Jonathan and Sabrina had the means, they had the motive, and they had the opportunity to kill Robert, get him out of the picture once and for all.
Let's bring him in for questioning.
So on November 18th, 2014, police arrested Jonathan Hearn at his firehouse where he was on duty, and then arrested Sabrina while she was on the way to her children's school for a parent-teacher conference. Yikes. For Robert's family and friends, they were so relieved. They felt like they were finally going to have answers to the many questions that they had been asking for months, and they would get the closure that they desperately needed. Or would they?
I don't know. You're the one telling the story. You love this, don't you? Because I normally guess everything. Now I'm like,
Homicide detectives were devastated when the prosecution decided that while there was enough evidence to convict and keep Jonathan in custody, there simply wasn't enough for Sabrina. She was released and went home to the comfort of her kids and family, while Jonathan stayed in custody. These partners in crime quickly became partners no more. And as this case moved into the courtroom, it became painfully clear that it was every man or woman for themselves.
dun dun dun.
So this was August 2014. And so they're investigating for several months. I believe it was 2015 when they actually arrested Jonathan and Sabrina and then quickly let Sabrina go. And so 2 years go by. Trial hasn't happened. Sabrina is still free, living her life.
But they indicted, like, Jonathan, right? Like, he has, like, the murder charge? Or what? They can't just, like...
Yes,
I imagine they can't hold you.
He was charged with murder, and he was held in custody for 2 years. His trial was set for January 2017. And 2 days before his trial was set to begin, he requested to talk to police, and he said, okay, fine, I'll tell you the truth. But you have to take the death penalty and life in prison off the table, and I'll tell you everything.
Whoa.
I'll give you the full truth, which they thought they kind of had. They thought it was just him.
Yeah.
He very quickly turned on Sabrina and gave police full access to his cell phone, which they probably already had because he's in custody.
Yeah.
But he must have given them something else. And he agreed to tell them everything. Like, he knew he was going down at this point. So he's going to either take her down with him and get a lesser sentence, or he's just going to take responsibility for all of it. Which, I mean, at that point, like, maybe he's lying. Maybe he just wants to get less of a sentence.
That's true. That's always the case. But what did he say?
Well, he claimed that Sabrina convinced him to kill Robert and that both of them were involved in planning and preparing Robert's murder. And luckily for him, a lot of what he was telling them was actually corroborated with text messages, emails, Google search, everything that they found on his phone kind of corroborated his story. I mean, it wasn't open shut, but
It's getting pretty close there.
It was there. And then in a move that no one suspected, Jonathan struck a plea deal and agreed to be convicted of voluntary manslaughter and only served 25 years in exchange for his testimony against Sabrina. So he never went to trial.
Hey, he just took the plea deal.
He took the plea deal.
Getting rocked in prison.
Right. And detectives are now taking all of the information he's told them and doing their damnedest to build a case against Sabrina and uncover as much evidence against Sabrina as they could, including bringing her in for interrogation multiple times. And I watched some of these interrogations. She never cracked. She never changed her story.
Did she have a lawyer with her?
She didn't, actually.
Oh, that's a good move if you can handle your shit, if you're guilty.
She never cracked. She continued to deny having any knowledge or involvement in her husband's murder.
And you know they were pushing her with the whole, like, oh, these text messages, your prayers
Oh,
together,
they
all this
pushed
shit.
and pushed and pushed, and she never gave in. But that steadfast denial, it wasn't enough to keep her from being arrested. They, at a certain point, had enough. And when she was finally arrested at her new residence over 100 miles from Silver Lakes, because apparently after all this went down, the residents of Silver Lakes kind of shunned her and pushed her out, and she had to take her kids and move far away. Because
you don't want to live in a sex party town with a murderer.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of fucks everything up, you know?
That's right.
All the fun and games go out the window. I heard there's
That's
lakes
right.
there. It's like, yeah, come on.
Even as she was preparing for trial, she still maintained her innocence, and she was pleading not guilty. And finally, in September, her 3-week trial began, and it was a vicious he said, she said between Jonathan and Sabrina. And it had the mostly female jury's heads just spinning. And throughout the trial proceedings, the prosecution presented extensive recordings of the phone conversations between Jonathan and Sabrina. And Jonathan was at the trial. It was at Sabrina's trial. That's why that sentence.
Like in his jumpsuit and shit?
I think
Because he was already in prison, right? Or
yes, he was already in prison.
He accepted a plea deal, right?
Yes.
So, like, he was, like, said and done.
Doesn't
mean they can't bring it back up.
True, but he had accepted a plea deal 25 years. That's it.
Yeah.
With the possibility for earlier parole. Jonathan, when asked about all of these phone conversations and text messages that the prosecution presented, Jonathan...
He was a witness.
He was a witness, and he said these were discussions of strategies, how to kill her husband. The religious texts and everything was to help, hopefully, because at a certain point he said that they thought that they were being wiretapped and listened to. So some of the religious conversations were purposeful to throw off detectives and things like that. Yeah. Jonathan also claimed that he had suggested to Sabrina much earlier, why don't you just divorce your husband? Like, then we can be together.
Seems like a lot less murderous.
Right. It seems a lot easier. And when he said that, Sabrina said that Robert would honestly rather be dead than divorced. Losing her would essentially kill him, so she may as well just kill him. That's what she told Jonathan, which, come on.
Jesus.
Yeah. He would not rather be dead than divorced. I don't even know this man, and I guarantee that. I feel like nobody really would. Jonathan also revealed shocking new information at the trial, explaining that shooting Robert was not the first attempt that they took at ending his life.
What?
According to Jonathan, in July of 2014, they planned to poison Robert's banana pudding with arsenic. That was Sabrina's idea. Jonathan agreed. And he used a prepaid credit card to transfer funds to a PayPal account so that he could buy arsenic online.
So weird that you can, like, buy arsenic online. And also, like...
Do you know what arsenic is used for?
Not really, but it's probably like a pesticide or something that you don't think it's, like, normally used for. Obviously, they sell it on the internet, so it can't be that bad.
According to medlineplus.gov, arsenic trioxide is used to treat leukemia.
Ooh.
Which is a cancer of the white blood cells. The drug can cause serious or life-threatening symptoms. It may cause the heart muscles to take longer to recharge between beats due to an electrical disturbance. It can cause encephalopathy, which is confusion, memory problems, and other difficulties caused by abnormal brain function. Basically, it can cause death. If you don't have leukemia, it can lead to a lot of health problems and death, which I think like anybody who's heard of arsenic understands. Right.
Sounds like that.
Right. So once Jonathan received this arsenic in the mail, which he didn't want it sent to his house, so he had it sent to
The firehouse?
It just started raining, huh?
It sounds like it, that you have a lot of.
Yeah, it just
It's
started
definitely
raining.
raining.
Well, I know,
It's
but
a climax to the story. It's all rain. So
it's important to say that because
Lightning,
I
lights
can't
go
cut
out.
the rain out, so people are going to be like, "What's that in the
I'm
background?"
gonna really fucking freak out if the lights go out and then like you have a dagger. I'm like, oh shit, this is a whole plan to kill me, you know? You're all more banana pudding.
Stop
you know?
it. Well, so they decided they had planned to put it in his banana pudding with Nilla wafers because apparently that was like one of his favorite snacks, and she would pack it in his lunch.
I mean, I love a Nilla wafer, but like seriously, like I mean,
Banana pudding.
if you're eating,
Ew.
no offense to anybody out there, I do not mean this in a terrible way, but if you're eating banana pudding, maybe there should be arsenic in it, you know?
Terrible.
I'm just saying. You know?
Okay. So once Jonathan,
Also, it's a weird thing for like a sex party guy who lives in this weird town in California where he's like making money and like eyes wide shut parties. You're like, what do you want for dessert? You think like chocolate cake or like
my
you know,
favorite.
whatever. And he's all banana pudding with Nilla wafers. You're like, you're so vanilla, bro. Yeah.
Anyways, once Jonathan received the poison, he decided he needed to research and kind of test out like how much poison was needed to adequately poison someone who was Robert's size. So naturally, he decided to experiment the weight by dose ratio by putting it in a pile of meat and feeding it to his neighbor's dog.
What a fucking asshole.
Right?
You know what I mean?
I mean, like, this is this like sheltered, God-fearing man. He's trying to poison the neighbor's dog just for experimentation purposes. I didn't like this guy, but now I hate this guy. After
I don't like
reading
that he already has a plea bargain for 25 years. You know what I mean?
Well,
Which
right.
you know will be reversed. I feel like it will. Like, fuck you. That's another charge that he didn't realize. Stupid moron.
Well, the dog didn't die. So,
Oh, shit.
well, he got the ratio wrong, apparently. And so the dog didn't die. But it kind of doesn't matter because ultimately Sabrina got cold feet and couldn't go through with it. But she did put it in his pudding, and she did put that pudding in his lunch, and she did send him to work with that pudding in his lunch with arsenic. But then she freaked out and called him and said, I just tasted the pudding, and it's totally bad. You're going to get super sick. Please don't eat it. Throw it out right now. She called him while he was at work and told him not to eat the pudding, and he didn't.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's still kind of attempted murder.
Well, it's totally attempted murder.
Okay, yeah. So she got cold feet. It didn't happen. But less than a month after this failed murder attempt, she managed to get her wits about her and decided, we're not going to poison him. We're going to shoot him. And she gave Jonathan a detailed layout of the railway facility and a detailed schedule of Robert's work.
Was it raining the night it happened? Because it sounds like that, you know?
So she gave him the layout of the facility and Robert's upcoming work schedule and asked him to shoot Robert. Once again, Jonathan agreed. And on August 17th, 2014, he did a few things to prepare for this murder. So he put adhesive flashing. I feel like this section, you're going to have things to say because I don't know what a lot of this means. Mm-hmm. So he put adhesive flashing on his motorcycle to try and change the color of some of the parts of his motorcycle. What is adhesive flashing? Like,
Well, it'd be like a
reflective tape?
Yeah, it'd be flashing, like you have a reflector or reflective tape. I mean, flashing could also be like, you know, like a chrome fender flare or something like that.
Okay,
You know what I
so
mean?
maybe that's what it was.
Something to change like
So he
the.
wanted it to not look exactly like his
It's
motorcycle.
also really fucking stupid to take. It's 5,900 people in this town, right?
Yep.
How many motorcycles are? 10, 20, 40?
I don't know.
It's a little weird.
He also bought 2 pre-packed backpacks. I don't know packed with what. And a mask that looked like an old man face mask. And then he got dressed in his like, I'm going to shoot somebody outfit. And that
Do you have one of those?
I do not.
I definitely don't, you know?
It was a long sleeve dark t-shirt and long baggy pants. He also created, apparently, a makeshift silencer out of the barrel of a mag light. That's a flashlight, right?
Yeah.
According to Bakersfield.com, Jonathan said that he drilled end caps to fit the caliber of the bullet he planned to use and glued freeze plugs inside of the barrel to muffle the gun's sound.
Yeah, it just breaks the sound barrier, like the sound, like it distributes. It's like a science. It's not
Yeah.
like super silent, but I thought the other guy was the mechanic.
Oh.
This guy's just a firefighter.
I mean, he's
The
very
hell?
smart. He was very smart, though. He became a firefighter and paramedic by the age of 21. That's pretty good.
And apparently a murderer by the age of
24.
whoa. He has an accomplished resume, you know?
Yep. So apparently, Jonathan later testified that the firearm was extremely quiet, probably no louder than a pneumatic nail gun you'd use for carpentry.
Which is like loud enough, but you're not gonna hear it outside the walls of a house. Or if you heard it anywhere, you'd be like,
Yeah.
I know what a gunshot sounds like. It's totally different.
Jonathan's claims also weren't the only shocking new evidence to come up in court. This fascinated me. Remember Jason Bernatine, Kelly, Sabrina's best friend, the couple that they were fucking around with? He also testified. Remember, he sent Jason those texts being like, I feel so terrible about the affair, etc. I'm like, why does Jonathan know Jason? How does he have his number? Like, where's this coming from? But it turned out that Jason and Jonathan knew each other before Jonathan ever met Sabrina.
What?
Bernatine, Jason Bernatine, I just like that last name. He was a San Bernardino County firefighter, and he testified that he met Jonathan through work. Jonathan was a paramedic at the fire station where Bernatine would sometimes work. He said that when he met Jonathan, before Jonathan and Sabrina were involved, he was so impressed with him. He was 21, he was a paramedic, and a firefighter, seemed to have his life planned out. Bernatine said that Jonathan was intelligent, well-spoken, proper, and seemed kind of sheltered. But he felt that he told Jonathan, I feel like you can achieve so much in life, and it's weird that you're a paramedic. I feel like you would be a doctor instead. This wasn't the shocking part.
The shocking part is that they were lovers. Dun, dun, dun.
That'd be great, but it's not. The shocking part was that Robert had been at Bernatine's house, helping him with some work before he was murdered, obviously. And Bernatine started getting texts from Jonathan asking for Robert's number. So Jonathan's texting Jason Bernatine, who he knows through the firehouse and whatnot, and saying, do you have Robert Limon's number? Can I have it? And Jason was like, what the fuck? And so he picked up the phone and called Jonathan. He's like, how do you even know him? You know, they had run into each other, from what I understand, at restaurants or whatever. They live in a town of 5,900.
Just running
right.
Robert. Hey, what's your number, bro?
But like, why would, at this point, Jason has no idea that an affair is happening between Sabrina and Jonathan.
Apparently he doesn't know the town that he lives in.
And he's like, why do you want his number? And Jonathan said, I'm having an affair with Sabrina, and I want to talk to Robert and tell him. And Bernatine said on the stand, he said, I became extremely angry, and I said, don't contact Robert. Don't contact Sabrina. You cannot contact these people anymore. And then he said, hold on a second. He put the phone down, and he said to Robert, do you know that your wife's having an affair with this man named Jonathan?
Oh, shit.
And Robert said, yeah, I know. I saw the text on her phone last night. Then he said, give me the phone. And so Jason gave Robert the phone. And Robert and Jonathan, Sabrina's husband and lover, talked for apparently 45 minutes. I don't know exactly what was said. Bernatine didn't really share it. But apparently, because Robert went off and talked to him and then got off the phone and seemingly was fine and okay.
Rob's like, hey, man, it's like, this is like something we do, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he was. I have no idea. After Jason Bernatine testified to all of this and shared all of this, Sabrina's attorney, Richard Terry, wanted to know more about the swingers group. He's saying, you were part of this group. You were having sex with everybody in the neighborhood. And Jason said, there was no swingers group, sir. And the lawyer said, according to you. And Jason Bernatine apparently smiled really big and said, yeah, according to me. And Sabrina's attorney, Richard Terry, was not giving up. He was like, this guy's lying straight to my face. And so he kept asking what Jason, Kelly, the Limons, and other friends did on their adult trips other than partying. He said, did you and your wife sleep with Sabrina and Robert? Tell me more details. And Bernatine was apparently smirking throughout all of these answers. And he testified that yes, him and Kelly would engage in sex acts with the Limons, but that it was not wife swapping, and it never involved full sexual intercourse. Sabrina, when she was testifying in her own trial, she claimed the same things. She said, "I'm a promiscuous vixen, but I'm not a killer." But when the prosecution read a letter that Sabrina had given to Jonathan on Valentine's Day in 2014, her entire defense began to fall apart. Because in that letter, she made it very clear that she was looking forward to their future together and that she wasn't willing to get a divorce. So if she's going to have a future with this lover and she's not going to get a divorce, then like, what are the options?
Kill him as
Murder.
Yeah.
So from this point on, Sabrina's answers to the prosecution's questions were, "I don't know. I'm not sure what I meant by that. I can't recall. I'm not sure." And her entire kind of...
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
That's right. It kind of fell apart. And the jury looked not convinced that she was not involved anymore. So once in deliberation, it took the jury only 6 hours to reach their verdict. And on February 21st, 2018, Sabrina Limon was convicted on 4 of the 6 counts that were brought against her, including first-degree murder, attempted murder, solicitation of murder, and conspiracy. She was acquitted of the alleged poisoning attempt, apparently. They didn't convict her
one
on
could
that
find
one.
a banana pudding, you know what I mean? That's like, who likes that? So it's like, yeah.
She was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison and is still serving out her sentence at the California Institution for Women in Corona, California. And Jonathan, he's 33 years old now, and he is serving his time at the Ironwood State Prison. He was expected to be released in November of 2035, when he would be 45 years old. But it appears that due to a new law that gives certain inmates who committed their crime when they were under the age of 25, he was 24, gives them the possibility of early parole. Now he's eligible for parole in November of 2028.
But he seriously, like, I just...
That's in 5 years.
I know, I just don't understand the legal system. With a drug case or something like that, you like, all right, I'm going to give up the guy.
Sure.
So you get a lighter sentence. But that guy literally built a silencer, premeditated murder. That's first degree premeditated murder.
Yeah, and he pulled the trigger.
Like,
and he admitted to it.
It's obvious that she
Of
was
course
totally
she was
involved with it.
Of course she was.
Oh, it's like
they didn't really need his testimony,
25 years
honestly.
of life. That's why, like, the life sentence.
She's probably not going to get out for a very long time, if ever.
Oh, yeah.
But
Well,
he potentially will be out in 5 years.
Well, there's a parole board. We'll see what happens, you know?
I will be so intrigued. I hope this podcast is still going on because I really was intrigued by this story, and I want to know if he's going to be out in 5 years.
You wanted to challenge me on this one, didn't you?
I did, and I also just thought like it's a couple, and I wanted to have your opinion on swingers parties, and do you think that can work, and can men and women be friends? And
Apparently
I just wanted
not.
to like
it leads
also
to murder.
let you know that in 5 years I'm gonna go and meet Jonathan when he's getting out of prison, and like,
Oh, my guy's gonna put on the charm and whatnot. And the next thing you know, you're all lemon meringue pie. I'm all, no thanks. I'll never eat any of your baked goods again.
oh, stop it! Only you can for the next 5 years until Jonathan gets out, and then like,
Oh, okay.
it's questionable.
I'll just indulge myself. And like, hopefully I don't forget, you know?
Anyways, that's it. That's our story for today. Thank you guys so much for listening. And if you missed it in the beginning, again, thank you for all of your kind words and thoughts regarding Izzy. And I apologize that we haven't had a new episode in a while, but hopefully you enjoyed this one. We've had some lovely reviews on Apple. We've also had some shitty ones. But that's fine. So leave us a review, join our Patreon, send us a DM, and thank you for listening.
Who left that banana pudding out?
Love you guys. Bye.
Death by Southwest is hosted by Jenna Schneider and Margot Carmichael.
Executive produced by Margot Carmichael.
Produced by Jenna Schneider.
Audio editing and sound design by Margot Carmichael.
Music by Soundstripe.
And a special thanks to Edward R. Murrow for letting us borrow his famous sign-off phrase, "Good night and good luck."